Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started as some of our attendees are coming in. It's so nice to have everyone with us today. Welcome to the Institute for Educational Advancement, or IEA, as we like to call it. My name is Deborah Monroe, and I am the president of IEA, and we are a national nonprofit headquartered here in California, although we have national programs. And our mission is to provide transformative educational experiences and mentorships to gifted and talented students across the country. And one of our premier programs is our residential summer camp. So today's topic is especially meaningful for us on preparing your gifted or 2E child for summer camp. But we also have a variety of other programs that we offer, including enrichment opportunities for elementary and middle school students primarily, including online and local classes after school on Saturdays and during the summer in more of like a day camp format. And for families with seventh graders, IEA administers the Caroline D. Bradley Scholarship, which provides 4 years of high school tuition support. But you need to be in seventh grade to apply, which is why you apply as a middle schooler. So you can learn more about these programs on our website if you are interested. But now, to focus on today's topic and to introduce our incredible speaker, I'll turn things over to IEA's Senior Program Manager, Nicole Fugit. Nicole?
Hello. Our speaker today is one of our UNASA facilitators, meaning she serves in a very multifaceted role at camp, from mentor to yoga teacher, conflict resolution mediator to mindfulness leader, and is just an overall fun and incredibly helpful person to have around in the long camp days. So she knows her stuff. Samantha Outcalt is a licensed clinical psychologist on staff at Sycamore School, an independent school in Indianapolis dedicated to gifted learners. In this role, she directs the social emotional wellness program, provides individual and group counseling, and consults with teachers and parents. A board certified health psychologist, Dr. Outkelt emphasizes the physiology of emotion and mind body interventions, giving a prevention oriented approach to build emotional and interpersonal intelligence. Dr. Outkelt is also a familiar face at IEA's UNASA sleepaway camps, where she loves supporting campers across their Colorado and Michigan locations. Samantha, you can take it away.
Thank you so much for that very nice introduction. And thank you to IEA for having me today. I am really grateful to be with all of you and speaking with the gifted support group. So thank you so much. So this is a time of year when families are registering for summer camps or potentially thinking ahead to a camp you've already committed to. And summer camp has the potential to really cultivate social emotional growth, to practice social skills, try out different aspects of a kiddo's personality or identity, and build confidence. At camp, you can engage in structured activities that are fun and teach essential skills like teamwork and collaboration, problem solving, and kids who attend camp have significant character building and skill building experiences while they're away, often returning more independent, stronger, more resilient, leading to a substantial boost in self-esteem and preparedness for navigating the world in general. I love this quote from psychologist Michael Thompson, who wrote the book Homesick and Happy, which is about camp and other away from home experiences. Camp is a place to build independence, and a degree of independence is important to build before summer camp. Dr. Thompson talks about a couple of paradoxes of parenting. These are all myths, by the way, but the paradoxes are we think if the more we control our kids' journey, the better it will be. And the more information we have about our kids' journey, the better it would be. In fact, the opposite is true. Kids really thrive with a sense of agency. And sometimes we as parents overcomplicate things when we intervene or mess up the general flow of how a situation would resolve. In a webinar last year, Dr. Thompson said, "This is the most conscientious, loving, devoted, focused generation of parents ever," which I agree with. Parents want to get an A+ in parenting. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But a result of that is that parents have really doubled the amount of time they spend with their children compared to past generations of parents. And the pandemic really changed the landscape regarding away from home experiences. Since then, kids have had fewer opportunities away from home and away from parents. There's a trend of fewer sleepovers with friends, fewer overnight visits with grandparents and other family members. There's been a trend toward later or older starts at sleepaway camp, or even a total reluctance of trying it out at all. So fewer kids have practiced being away from home and away from parents, and those who do seem to have fewer of those experiences under their belt than past generations. Since the pandemic, anxiety seems to have increased when kids do have that first sleepaway experience. And spoiler alert, camp should not be it. That should not be the first time sleeping away from home. Anxiety for kids and parents has increased. It can be hard as parents for us to let our kids go. So, what do we do about all of this? We prepare them, which thankfully prepares us too. But first, let's think about, what do kids get out of being away from parents? As it turns out, it's quite a lot. The freedom to make kid-reasoned decisions. So these are decisions that they are making at their own developmental stage, which might vastly differ from the decisions we would have made for them or would even encourage them to make. The freedom to fail without being rescued, to have a break from parental expectations, to engage in risky play, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a moment, to manage their own conflicts, to have their own opinions, and to contribute meaningfully to a community. One of the biggest things they gain is the opportunity to own their own narrative. When we are sharing every moment with our child, we're sharing psychological ownership of it and co-creating the narrative or even creating it for them. If you're not there, they can tell the narrative from their own lens. It's when kids do something away from their parents that they can fully own that experience. And at camp, children experience a level of autonomy rarely found in their everyday lives. Without parents present, they are in a position to make decisions, solve problems, and take care of themselves in ways they may have never done before. And this fosters self-reliance and confidence. Summer camp offers many, many things. One of the things that gifted kids tend to really love about summer camp is the intense bonding. The 24/7 nature of camp creates opportunities for deeper connections than school or even extracurricular activities. They have shared experiences and challenges, shared living quarters, which accelerate friendship formation. And a lot of campers report that their camp friendships remain long after camp ends, sometimes even being their closest relationships. Teamwork and collaboration. When kids participate in the structured camp activities, they are able to experience these new social settings that can boost their self-esteem and prepare them to navigate social situations more effectively when they return to their usual school environment. Spending time in nature has been shown to reduce stress, improve mood, and increase attention span. And many campers report feeling more relaxed, centered, and connected to the world around them after spending so much time outdoors at camp. They get a break from technology and they engage in risky play. So, what does that mean? Risky play refers to this thrilling, challenging, and sometimes uncertain outdoor activity that allows a child to test their limits. By doing so, they build confidence, develop resilience, but they're in a supervised environment, so we know that they're safe. But rather than avoiding risk, this approach advocates for managed risk, like climbing high or playing near water to foster essential skills. The goal is to enhance child development by building executive function skills, risk intelligence, physical literacy, so they're getting a sense of where their body is in space, and emotion regulation. It also has the potential to reduce anxiety by allowing children to face their fears. Choosing the right camp. First of all, I want to say you know your kiddo, so trust your instincts. You might also consider gifted kids spend a lot of their time achieving, striving to achieve, and being graded or critiqued by adults. They don't always have to just play and be a kid. And yes, summer can be an excellent time to get ahead in academics or music or sports, but kids also really crave connection and play. Even if we're talking about a subject that they love or playing an instrument that is their life's passion, there's still some element of being evaluated for their performance in those settings. Also consider the sensory needs of your child, the emotional and social needs. We know that gifted kids have unique affective characteristics like emotional intensity and sensitivity, a strong need for justice, a desire for deep relationships. They can be perfectionistic, have high expectations of self and others. They might feel different from same-aged peers. And asynchronous development can really come into play, where we know their intellectual age is higher than their chronological age, but oftentimes social and emotional age might be lower. And this can really come into play when social and emotional skills are put to the test in a summer camp environment. Adding to this, these characteristics may be even more impactful at camp for twice exceptional kids or profoundly gifted kids. Also think about the distance from home. Is it an hour drive away, 5-hour drive away, a plane ride away, and what works well for your child? When you've chosen the right camp, then prepare. Preparing your kid for sleepaway camp can be a positive experience. I suggest starting with a conversation about what to expect, highlighting activities that match their interests. You can visit the camp's website or social media together to see photos and discuss what looks fun. Acknowledge and validate any anxieties your child may have, while at the same time expressing your confidence in their ability to adapt and have fun. You might say, I know it's new and can feel scary, and I believe you'll have some great adventures. Now, let's talk about what other skill building can be done in advance. Fostering independence. These skills can be practiced before camp begins, and you can even start now. Can they engage in routines around the house without reminders? If a kid can do something for themselves, have them do it for themselves. Focus on building essential daily living skills, such as organizing their space, managing hygiene, getting dressed without reminders. This ensures that their practical independence is developed to match their intellectual readiness for the camp environment. And it's important at camp, making sure your mountain of belongings is not spilling over into somebody else's mountain of belongings. Also contributing to the collective care of shared spaces. Believe it or not, kids have an inherent drive to contribute to the family, to the household, even if they don't show it. And trust me, I have 3 kids. I know that they don't always show it. Also practice independent emotion regulation, where they navigate a tricky emotional distress scenario without adult intervention. Now, as a parent, this often requires us to modulate our own emotions because our instinct may be to swoop in and to rescue them from their distress. We need to regulate our own emotions in those moments and remember the bigger purpose of giving them some time and space to work through their feelings. We don't want to rob children of their opportunities to build autonomy. This helps develop their frustration tolerance and then feel effective in how they manage their feelings. And help seeking is a social emotional skill. So this doesn't mean they're always doing things alone. Practicing asking for help and asking for support is a way of regulating emotion. And it will pay out dividends if they come to you for that support rather than you coming in to rescue. Also, practice time away from home, time away from parents. Camp should not be their first attempt sleeping away from home. So practice some shorter stays. Utilize sleepovers with friends or family to build confidence in sleeping away from home and have them practice packing for themselves on these shorter adventures. Let's think about flexibility. So we do want to prepare for camp, and we also want to expect the unexpected because anything and everything can happen at camp. But it's important to remember we are more cognitively rigid when we're under stress. And coming to camp for the first time can be inherently stressful, especially at the beginning of the week. So we want to know what to expect and then throw it all out the window and be prepared for the unexpected. Too much preparation can actually backfire for a gifted kiddo. If they have a schedule memorized, for example, and then that day doesn't go to plan, they might be set up for disappointment or anxiety. So maintaining flexibility is key, even when it doesn't come naturally. We can practice using wait and see language while we're at home. So we can say things like, we don't know how it'll turn out. Let's wait and see. And if you build that habit of saying, let's wait and see, let's wait and see, let's wait and see, that will become a mantra for themselves as well. This can help them stay in the present moment rather than inventing worst case scenarios and going down those rabbit holes. We can practice mental flexibility by helping kids imagine alternative solutions from point A to point B. So we might have to go through point C and point D on our way to point B. We might have a really messy, convoluted way to point B, or we might have to abandon our original point B and come up with a different destination altogether. What does that mean in practical real life? It means practicing new ways of doing familiar tasks. So you can have your child brush their teeth with their non-dominant hand and see how that feels. Take a different route to school or some other familiar place and involve them in the decision-making of how to get there. You can change the rules of a game. So if you're playing memory, for example, instead of looking for exact matches, now on this round, we're going to look for similar colors. On the next round, we're looking for animals. On the next round, we're just looking for cards that have the same vibe. Also, modeling. Make your shifts in thinking explicit to your kids. Describe what happens when you have to shift your thinking in the moment. So you might say, well, I thought I would put this basket here, but it doesn't seem to fit, so I'm going to have to think of a new place to put it. Also, practice mindfulness or breathing techniques to reset when thrown off the original plan. When we embrace a beginner's mindset, we can see the situation anew and fresh, even when it's familiar. One thing you could try is introduce the family to a new food once a week, every week from now until departure for camp. This might not be fun or comfortable for every kid, but it helps practice mental flexibility. And reframe roadblocks as stepping stones. This might not come easily to every kid, but you can help walk them through it. It is helpful for them to be the ones to do the reinterpreting of the situation, but you might have to call them to the task and invite them to reframe. Partnering with camp staff can be really critical for gifted and 2E kiddos. This is your time to shine as a parent advocate. Remember that all the camp staff are on your side. They are on your team, but they need to be informed to be able to effectively intervene or support your child. You can create a tip sheet of your child's strengths, triggers, coping tools, and then make sure you share it with camp in advance. Thinking about sensory management strategies. Camp is a highly stimulating environment, no matter what camp it is. So plan ahead. Consider packing noise-reducing headphones or fidgets or a weighted blanket, whatever has been helpful to your kiddo in the past. And inform the camp how they will know that your kid needs a break. What are the telltale signs? What helps your child reset, recharge, decompress? And make sure the camp staff have this knowledge. If your child has an IEP or a 504 plan or some other kind of customized support plan, consider whether it's relevant to share with camp staff. Do you want to share it in its entirety or maybe create a streamlined version? Or if your child works with a mental health therapist, occupational therapist, or other professional, do they have strategies to share with the camp staff? And you can include those in the tip sheet that you create. Normalizing emotions. So gifted kids have big feelings. Let's plan ahead for how to address them. Talk with your kid about a coping plan. What are 3 strategies that they will try when they're emotionally dysregulated or overly tired or simply feeling irritated with everyone? Make sure they have more than one go-to tool. And rehearse. Rehearse asking for a break. Rehearse asking for support. For kiddos who are nervous about meeting other campers, have them practice introducing themselves. Do a little role playing at home. Have them think of a get to know you question that they enjoy and practice asking that of others. You can also consider packing a connector item like a deck of cards so they have some way of reaching out to other campers. Also practice the coping plan. Talking about it is the first step. Practicing it is key. Also consider packing some comfort items and talk through the big picture with your child. What are their goals for camp? Think of something attainable. Maybe it's making one friend. Maybe it's getting fresh air. Maybe it's trying archery. Then, when they're in a moment of distress while they're at camp, they can revisit this goal as an anchor, as part of their coping plan, focusing their mind on the bigger picture rather than getting caught up in the immediacy of the distress. Talking about normalized emotions, let's talk about homesickness. This can be a heavy topic for us to consider as parents. But a note from Michael Thompson: homesickness is not a psychiatric illness. It is not a disorder. It is the natural, inevitable consequence of leaving home. And it's a nearly universal experience. 97% of campers experience some degree of homesickness. It's a normal part of the growth process and shouldn't be viewed as a failure or weakness. So we can prep our kids. And this is important because if they know that this is an expected reaction, there won't be those additional layers of panic or thinking there's something wrong with me or this effortful attempt to push the feeling away. And prep yourself too. Know that there will be hard moments at camp and trust that there will be resilience that grows from it. Surprisingly, paradoxically, the antidote to homesickness is immersion, immersing themselves in the camp experience. In fact, increased contact with home can actually prolong the adjustment period or interfere with it altogether. Homesickness does go away. It resolves more quickly and fully when kids are immersed into camp life. So think about this when you're sending camp mail, if you do. Communicate your confidence and optimism in your child and refrain from sharing news from home. It can be discussed when they come back. Distressing news will worry them and they can't do anything about it. And exciting news will trigger FOMO, and we know that fear of missing out is a really big issue for gifted kids. Also, commit to the camp. Commit to the sleepover. If they're doing these mini adventures in preparation for camp, have a plan and talk about it ahead of time that I'm not going to come rescue you. You're going to be there. I'll see you in the morning. When they have the opportunity to work through the feeling, they develop a mastery of it. And there is such a joy and reward in mastering that homesickness. It builds crucial life skills like resilience, self-confidence, and independence. They turn that common emotional challenge into a growth opportunity. And by navigating those feelings of separation, they learn to manage the anxiety and build social skills and self-reliance that lasts a lifetime. For campers, they can know this in advance, that when the homesickness arrives, they can keep busy, they can focus on the positives of camp, and they can reach out to their counselors. Remember that camp staff are highly trained. They know how to work with kids, help them through homesickness, and this results in that increased resilience and independence by the end of camp. Importantly, Don't forget about you. This might not be the easiest experience the first time your kid goes to summer camp. Parental anxiety is normal. One thing that Thompson says, is the hardest thing about camp is coming to the philosophical terms with the reality that your child is going to have a lot of fun that you cannot see, cannot photograph, and in which you cannot share. But trust the process. Know that your child is in good hands and that they are developing resilience and problem-solving skills. Trust that you have done your research. You picked a good camp and you prepared your child for homesickness before it started. You built the skills, you practiced the skills with your child. So trust the camp staff to handle issues and to communicate with you if necessary. Letting go and allowing kids to immerse themselves in the camp experience will really allow them to reap those developmental benefits. Okay, so what if you've done all the preparation possible and they are still not ready? First, try a little honest soul searching about whether the hesitation is about their readiness or your readiness. But then, if they are truly not ready, it's okay to wait. The reality of summer camp is that there are other kids there. It is a highly stimulating environment. There is a lot of time spent on the go. There are often not a lot of opportunities for downtime or alone time. And these are factors to consider when you're deciding whether to register your child for camp. There are some camps that mitigate these variables very, very effectively, but camp is still camp. So the preparation is essential, but not always sufficient. And it's okay to work on skill building for a year, whether that's something you're doing with your child or you're reaching out to a therapist in the community to help your child build some skills independently. And create those opportunities for shorter, closer to home sleepover experiences so that they can get that practice. So I went through that a lot faster than I intended to, but that gives us lots of time for questions. What questions do you all have, or what would you like to discuss?
This is where everyone can, if you cannot add something to the chat, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. One of the questions that has come through is, as a parent, how do you really deal with your own anxiety around sending your child to camp for the first time?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And I think it's important to really think about whose feelings belong where, right? And owning these are my feelings, my kid has their feelings, and kind of understanding where that boundary is. As I just say that, it sounds so simple. It sounds like such an easy, obvious thing. But sometimes when we see our child's distress, it feels like our own distress. And on vice versa. Sometimes we feel our distress and we assume that our child is also distressed about it. So the first step in that is recognizing which feelings belong to which person. But then to manage your own anxiety, there are your own coping skills and your own self-regulation skills that are important to put into place. And so some of that is really the basics of self-care and taking it all the way down to the foundation of making sure you're getting enough sleep, enough hydration, nutrition, connection with other people so that you are a well-functioning person yourself. And then when your own distressing feelings come in, you have ways to regulate those emotions. Maybe it's going for a walk, maybe it's reading a book, maybe there are things that you can do to help yourself feel better in the moment, but then also coaching yourself through it, reminding yourself that sound decisions have been made. You did your research, you have done your practice, and your kids will be okay. A lot of it is trust and faith in the process, which is not easy to do because we're not getting that feedback. And I think we've become really accustomed to immediate gratification and immediate feedback, whether it's through photos or immediate contact with our child, or just knowing that they're okay. And remember back to when we were kids, a lot of times our parents didn't know where we were, they couldn't reach us immediately. We were okay. They were okay. And I know that the world is different now, but we're not talking about sending them out onto the streets. They'll be in a safe environment.
Thank you, Samantha. Another question that came up is, can you comment about how to structure the initial drop-off at camp?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to go back to that idea of with camp communication, keeping it optimistic, projecting your confidence, really portraying your belief in your child. And you do believe in your child, or this camp experience wouldn't be happening. So making sure that they see that and they hear the confidence in your voice, they see the confidence in your body language, and you give hugs and you say that you'll miss them. And you also say, you know, they're going to have an excellent time. Maybe if they're feeling anxious and having a great time is not something that they can predict for themselves, you don't have to sugarcoat it. You can say things that you know are accurate, like, I know this is going to be a great adventure. I know you are going to meet some new people. You don't even have to say you're going to make friends because who knows? They may or they may not. We hope that they will. But if you say, I know you're going to meet some new people with a lot of optimism, that's something they can't argue with. They will meet new people. Um, but really your demeanor in that drop off can make a big difference. You might be tearful, and I'm not saying you should hide that, but pair your tearfulness with the confidence and belief in them.
Samantha, thank you for all this really helpful information. We have another question. The question is there a certain age range that you recommend for sleepaway camp?
So I will say this is really dependent on your child. And different kids are ready at different ages. Um, I mentioned earlier, I have three kids. Two of my kids were ready at younger ages than another of my children. And that depended on a lot of different things. COVID was one of those things, but even just based on who the child is, I think signs of readiness are more important than age. And so some of the readiness goes into the fit of the child with the camp. And so if this is a camp that they're really excited about, they can see themselves there. The goals that they have for themselves are goals that can actually be realized at this camp. That goes a long way. In terms of individual readiness, have they had some of these experiences staying away from home before? How do they navigate emotional distress? How do they connect with other peers? We're not expecting all of that to be fine-tunedly developed at this point before they go to camp, but we do want to have a foundation of some of those skills in place before camp.
Thanks, Samantha. I see a question in the chat about IEA's day camp in Pasadena, so I'll take a second to answer that. I'm one of the coordinators for the IEA day camp, and the question is if there's resistance to being dropped off, what's the policy for the IEA day camp in Pasadena? Um, and I think what is being asked is kind of how we approach that. And, you know, when everybody's being dropped off, a lot of the time kids are playing in the front yard. We have games out to kind of help everybody transition into being there. And so a lot of times, you know, we'll invite students to, you know, play a game or just kind of gather with other students on the front porch to, you know, get to know each other. And also parents are able to stay on the front porch or in the front yard on the first day or, you know, any of the days to kind of help ease the transition so that students know that their parents are nearby, you know, as a comfort. And we usually also will host kind of a first, before the session starts, a day when families can come and tour the space and get to know some of the staff and see where their classes are going to be. And so that kind of helps ease the transition too for campers for the day camp. And, staff is always prepared to, help in any way we can to any kind of like nervous feelings about the first day and help connect students with other children who, might be good first day buddies for them. So I hope that answers that question.
I
Samantha,
see a question
oh,
in
sorry.
the chat about ways to connect with kids after camp, which I think is a really fantastic question. So I can address that. But Nicole, did you want to say something first?
Oh, sorry, Samantha, that
Oh,
was
sure.
that was me, Cheryl.
Okay.
I have just a couple questions that were
Okay.
submitted with our RSVP form, so I'll just
Sure.
wait until you answer that first one. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So after you pick up your kiddo from sleepaway camp, um, it is, I think, important to remember that they have been in an intense environment 24/7 for days on end, probably, and they are probably exhausted, mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausted. They've been keeping it together for a really long time. They might not have a lot to share on the drive home or the flight home. They might not have a lot to share the next day. It might take a little time for them to really decompress after camp. So give them some space for that. You can, when you reconnect, when you pick them up, um, talk about how happy you are to see them, of course, layer on the TLC and be there to support them, but also realize that they might retreat to their room, curl up with a cozy blanket or with a family pet, and you might not see them again for a little bit. And that's okay. That's normal. That's natural. After they've had some time to decompress, that's a fantastic time to then start looking through pictures together or asking about, certain things that you knew they were going to do and checking in on those things. When we leave an open-ended question like, how was camp? They might not be thinking about all of the specifics. But if you say, I know you really wanted to try archery, tell me how that went. Or if the camp has pictures on their social media or website, or if your child took pictures and you're looking at those together, talk about, okay, I see you out by the lake here. What was that like? Was the water cold? What did you do? Who did you connect with while you were on the lake? And so having those anchor points that you can check in on can be really helpful.
Oh, that's great. I had just a few questions that came in. One was a camp specifically designed for gifted children where they might meet more intellectually similar peers. From a social, emotional, and development standpoint, which environment might better support their flexible thinking and develop social skills at this stage?
So that's a really good question. And some camps for gifted kids are more academically focused. And so that is going to have that evaluative piece probably. So that's something to just factor into the formula as you're thinking through it. And so there might be that intellectual peer in an academic camp kind of environment. Um, I don't know whether there would be the social emotional support in that environment. For some, there might be, and for others, there might not be. There's probably a lot of variation there. And so there might be some clues by reading reviews of the camp, um, or maybe even talking to the camp staff before registering to ask them some questions about what their focus is, how they handle a moment when a child is experiencing distress or they've hit a barrier with emotion, with frustration tolerance. What is the camp staff's response to those kinds of situations? And those can clue you in to how they're navigating and how they support kiddos from a social emotional perspective. You could also ask when you see a child not connecting with other kids, or you see a child kind of running into some social conflict with kids, how do the camp staff manage those moments? And so you can kind of interview them a little bit if you're not getting information from their regular sources.
Thank you, Samantha. And then we have another question here. that asked, do the camps have a structured schedule that can be shared to the child in advance of the camp? Such a resource might help to mentally prepare a child for what will happen.
Yeah. So some camps do provide a schedule and some camps don't. So there's going to be some variation there. My recommendation would be not to get into the weeds of it. Um, I mentioned on one of those slides that if a child really memorizes the schedule and they have a set series of expectations of this is going to happen, then this, then this, and this, it can be hard to be flexible when a schedule change comes up. And schedule changes do come up at camp because anything can happen at camp. We're dealing with unexpected weather. We're dealing with all kinds of things that can happen in a camp environment. And so I do think it can be helpful to preview a rough outline of a schedule. It can be helpful to know like certain activities will happen at camp, even if you don't know what days they will happen or what time of day. And so I think some preparation is helpful. But again, we don't want to get too attached to that schedule.
Thank you, Samantha.
Yeah.
Sounds like that is pretty much all the questions that have come through. And I'm going to hand this over to Vivian. She can share a little bit of information about UNASA and just thanking you, Samantha, so much for this amazing presentation and your amazing expertise.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Hi, thanks again, Samantha, and thank you, Cheryl, for introducing. If you aren't familiar, I'm the program coordinator for UNASA, which is one of our summer camp programs that we have here at IEA. And just kind of insights if you are interested in our specific camp or if you want to talk about what our summer looks like. We do have applications extended for our UNASA East session. So, and if you're interested in applying, you can go ahead and apply by March 31st. For our West session, we are full, but we are accepting applications on the wait list. So if you can also submit applications, you can do so. Cheryl has shared where you can find information about some of our programs, any questions that you may have for our camp specifically, how to best prepare your child for attending UNASA. And if you have any questions in particular, you can feel free to visit our website and email us.
Great. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Samantha. We really appreciate all of your time today. And we hope everyone has some amazing summer camp experiences for their kids' plans.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for managing the questions. And we really appreciate having you here, Samantha and Vivian. We're excited about all the new campers that are maybe going to try out UNASA as well, or their day camps in their areas. And to our families who attended, thank you so much. We hope that this helps you as you begin to prepare with your kid this exciting adventure that they're undoubtedly about to take in the summer, whatever camp they choose. So thanks so much to all of our participants, and hope everyone has a great rest of the week.